Lights.
Camera.
Follow the trail.
Ready to shoot.
If you know where a deer's bedding and you know where he's eating, that deer should be dead.
Camera.
If you're passive on a deer, what you're doing is you're teaching them.
I've got 30 bucks in the Michigan record book. Everyone but one has had at least one previous wound on his body. Some had as many as 4.
Trail Cam Radio.
From the guys at Exodus.
Welcome to Trail Cam Radio. We are in Western Kentucky with probably what could be the most impactful episode, the most inspiring guest that we've ever probably been in touch with, not only inside of our circle, but probably not even in the hunting industry. It could be the world.
Yeah, ever.
So we are sitting with a man by the name of Jason Koger.
Yep.
I didn't murder it. So for anyone right now that has their phone, computer, if you have something in front of you where you can get to Google, I want you to Google his name right now, because this guy is the first and only bilateral double amputee with bionic hands.
2 bionic hands.
Absolutely.
2 bionic hands. His story is really, really inspiring. We spent the last couple hours here filming a whitetail crib, so that will be on the YouTube channel shortly. But just the message that this guy has and the attitude, you would think, going through something like this would be life-changing. And not to say that it's not life-changing, but not to change your attitude, not to change. I mean, I don't even know how else to introduce you other than that. It's one of the most inspiring stories that I've ever personally, and we've not known you for several years, but we actually met you several years by total accident.
Yeah, we just
coincidence.
Rode the same bus to the ATA show.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
We actually hadn't filmed a Whitetail Cribs episode yet.
No.
It was in the works, and we were pitching the idea, and we talked to you about it, and you were like, yeah, you should come on down to my place.
Yep.
And we were like, all right, let's do it. 2 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
And then there's even been a cool story that you told me about your father-in-law hunting with me that.
Yeah, so I was like telling my girlfriend that I was like, we're going to go film this Whitetail Cribs episode with this guy, and you won't believe it. Like, he hunts and he doesn't have hands. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, he has 2 bionic hands. And he was like, wait, I hunted with that guy. I was like, no way. Small world.
Absolutely.
So typically when we do these podcasts, we're kind of directing the conversation. It's typically geared around trail cameras or hunting or whatever. But I think that this episode is probably a little bit different. I think that we should probably just let you, tell your story, explain who you are, life pre-accident, life, why you're going through the accident, the recovery, the story of the accident, and where you are now. And I think if there's anything that pops up and we have something specific, I think Cameron and I will just kind of jump in and ask. Yeah.
Yep. So my name is Jason Koger, and my last name's Koger, almost like the Kroger store, just leave the R out. So I grew up, basically where we are right now. This is where I grew up. My dad actually built this house, and I didn't even tell you all this, but so this is my house I bought from my mom and dad. This is where I was born and raised. Right next door is my uncle's house. Next door to him was my grandfather's house. Next door to him is my other uncle's house. And I'm surrounded about 2,300 acres of corn and soybeans, which is what my grandfather did. He was a farmer. And growing up, I grew up in this house with me obviously living here, my cousin living next door, which was 3 months older than me. And then my other cousin, my uncle, my cousin lived there. He was a year older than us. So we all grew up pretty close, almost like brothers would. I have a sister, but there was no other boys in the house. So, in the neighborhood, it was just us boys running around. And my dad owned a construction company. So I knew my entire life that I would probably work for my dad. He started the company in 1984 with $1,500 to his name, is all he had. And he was a drill sergeant in the Army. So growing up, there was never a I cannot do something type of attitude. You always knew that there was a way to do everything. I've always gone to church. I have a lot of faith. I think everybody growing up, they know what they want out of life. You kind of know what you want to do as a profession, and you kind of know if you want to get married, don't want to get married, if you want to have kids, don't want to have kids, where you want to live, what state, whatever. You kind of have your own plan, and your plan don't always go as the way you think it's going to go, obviously. So I graduated from high school, went to work for my dad, and then I decided I wanted to go to college, so I went to Murray State University, and I wanted to not necessarily get a degree in anything. I just wanted to kind of get away from work for at least 4 more years. I did get an ag engineering degree. I came home 4 years later, and I had met my wife in Murray, and she actually grew up in Owensboro. Murray's about 2 hours from where I live, and she actually grew up on the other side of the county, and she went to a different high school, so I didn't know her, in high school or anything like that. And so basically I came home, went back to work for my dad, started running work in the construction field, and pretty much had my life figured out. I knew I was going to work for my dad. Eventually I was going to take over the company. I knew that I wanted to marry Jenny, and things started happening. I knew growing up that I wanted to buy my mom and dad's house, and things started happening. I asked Jenny to marry me. We got married. I bought a house in Owensboro at first. It was a little 800 square foot home, and Jenny always wanted 4 kids. And I love kids, so it didn't matter to me whether we had 4 or 18. I didn't care. So we bought this house, and I always told my wife, Jenny, that I wanted to buy my mom and dad's house. And I knew that after we had one child, when we got to the second child, an 800 square foot home wasn't going to be big enough for 4 of us. And we decided that we were ready to start having kids. Didn't take very long. We got pregnant pretty quick, and I had our first little girl. Her name was Billy Grace. And the reason we came up with Billy Grace is Jenny's dad actually passed away right before we got married, before I even asked Jenny to marry me. He had a massive heart attack. We were dating, and his name was Billy. So we knew we were going to name the first child Billy, whether it be Billy as a boy or Billy as a girl. So we named her Billy Grace Koger. And I knew when Jenny's dad died that I wanted to marry Jenny, and kind of going back and forth, I know, but I think it's pretty important. I always felt like when you're ready to get married, you should ask for the dad, the guy, the 2 guys should talk and basically get his blessings. Well, I never had that opportunity to do that. And I knew I wanted to marry Jenny at the time, so I actually wrote a letter to ask him for permission to marry Jenny, and I put it in a casket. Nobody ever knew I was going to do it. And basically, whenever I proposed to Jenny, I showed her the letter that I had put in her dad's casket. So we got married, got the house, got a kid now. We wanted to wait, a little while before we started having another child, and completely unexpectedly, we got pregnant again pretty quick, and we had our second daughter. Her name's Campbell, and they were 3 months apart, basically. And when we found out that Campbell was that we were pregnant with Campbell, I told Jenny, I said, all right, it's time for me to talk to Mom and Dad about buying, the house. I want to raise our kid up the way I was raised, and my cousins wanted to do the same thing. So I came out, and basically I didn't give Mom and Dad an option to tell me no. I just told them they had to go. I bought my mom and dad's house, and we moved out here right before Campbell was born. So here I am, living where I wanted to live. I had the job I wanted to have. My wife was working. We were starting to have kids. I mean, life was great. I was working 7/12s at the time, and on March 1st of 2008, it was on a Saturday, and we had just slowed down from working so much. And I'll never forget waking up that morning, just like any other day. That March 1st, of 2008 was the first warm day of the year. It felt like spring, and I was doing some honeydew chores that I needed to catch up from working so much. And I told Jenny, I said, well, what do you want to do for the day? And she said, well, the first thing I want to do is I want to take the kids to the mall. They had this little train set inside the mall where you could ride, with the kids. And she said, I'd like to take the girls. And Billy Grace was 21 months old. Campbell was 3 months old at the time. And so we went to Owensboro and met my sister and my niece. And we went on this little train ride throughout the inside of the mall and came back home. And I was starting to do some of the honeydew chores that she wanted done. And some young boys came over to hang out. Jenny was actually helping her brother's fiance at the time. They were going to make some wedding invitations because Jenny was a graphic design major, and so she was going to help them make these wedding invitations. And she had came over with her brother and a couple of friends. And so I told Jenny, I said, well, while y'all are working on the wedding invitations, I'm going to put the girls down for a nap. I'm going to go outside and play with the boys. And that's exactly what I did. I put the kids down for a nap and came outside, started playing basketball. And then one of the boys, they lived in town, and they wanted to go on a quick four-wheeler ride. And so I went in and asked if we could do this little four-wheeler ride. And they said, oh, absolutely. And I said, well, we're just going to go ride around the farm. So basically there's a U-shaped gravel drive that goes beside my house, and it makes a U-shape and ends up 2 houses down at my grandfather's farm. It's not very far at all. And I told Jenny, I said, I'm going to take them around the farm one time, come right back home. I'll be gone 10 minutes, maybe. We jumped on the four-wheeler and we took off, and that was the day that my life changed forever, and I never imagined that it would ever happen that way. But on that ride, I came in contact with a down power line. We had an ice storm that year and a windstorm, and not for sure why the line was down, but it was about 30 inches off the ground, and basically came in contact with a down line. And it's a blessing that the kids never got hurt. I took it all. I took 7,200 volts of electricity, and when you get electrocuted, I've learned a lot about electricity. When you get electrocuted, it usually will shock you or electrocute you for about 30 seconds, and then the power shuts off. And if you were draped over the line, the power comes back on and then gets shut back off. And it'll do that every 30 seconds until whatever's on it is gone. So whether it's a tree limb or whatever, it'll eventually either burn through you or catch something on fire to get it off of the line. Luckily, I took 7,200 for 30 seconds, stopped my heart, and I had leaned into it so I wasn't draped over it. And as soon as the 30 seconds happened, it shot me off the back of the four-wheeler. I hit the ground, and I hit the ground hard enough that it started my heart back up. So, really, I still didn't understand. Obviously, I knew I got electrocuted, but I didn't. And it's funny when I tell my story because it sounds like it was no big deal, but obviously it was a pretty big deal. I felt like I was on fire. I felt like I was burning. I was trying to climb down into a ditch. My cousin was actually behind me, and he was tackling me, trying to keep me out of the ditch. My left thumb was basically off. It was barely hanging on by just a piece of meat, and that's where electricity had exited. It was out my thumb. And really, I didn't think that it was that big of a deal. I mean, when you hear about somebody getting electrocuted with 7,200 volts, you think that it's a lot worse. I mean, you hear stories, you watch TV, you watch movies, and all this fake stuff. You see that it blows your limbs off, and that's really not what happens. It burns you from the inside out. It's what it does, and it causes poisonous toxins inside your body, and the poison has to go somewhere, and it goes through your kidneys, and that's basically is what the scary part of being electrocuted is, what's done internal. So the ambulance came, picked me up, took me to Owensboro Hospital. My wife, it shut my whole neighborhood down. So my wife knew that something happened, and then she got the phone call. my cousin was scared to call my wife to tell her because he didn't think I was going to make it. So he called my mom in Owensboro, and my mom called my wife. My wife made it to the scene of the accident and rode an ambulance with me. And basically, I remember telling her that it really wasn't that big of a deal because I'm just going to lose my thumb. My grandfather passed away a couple months before I got hurt, and he was a single arm amputee. And I remember telling my wife, "Is like, Papa lost his whole entire arm. Like, I'm just going to lose my thumb. It's not too terrible bad, I'm alive." So make it to Owensboro Hospital and basically have no idea about what I told you on the poison inside my body. Helicopter came, picked me up, and immediately took me to Nashville, Tennessee to the burn unit. And when I got in the helicopter, I still didn't understand why I was going to Nashville. I mean, I even asked the question multiple times, why are we going to Nashville? Like, why do I have to go so far away when it's just my thumb? I remember in the helicopter getting cathed, and I remember seeing the urine that was coming out of me look like Dr. Pepper. And that is blood and poison, and basically my kidneys were shutting down. I make it to Nashville, Tennessee in a helicopter, completely awake, and get off the helicopter, and I go straight into a room that I'll never forget. It reminded me of a morgue. Everything was stainless steel. And at that moment, I didn't know if I was alive, if I was dead, or really what. But that room, come to find out what it is, it's called hydro room, and I learned all this after. Hydro is a room that they take you in, and there's a pressure washer in there, and they wash all your dead skin off of you. So I went through that procedure completely awake, even though I don't remember it now because they gave me so much medication to help me forget that. They were waiting on my wife to get there to sign release forms, which was a 2-hour drive for her. So I went through the hydro, is what it's called. I went through hydro awake and knowing that it was happening. And then when my wife got there, basically, doctor came down and said, "You have 2 choices: to sign papers to amputate whatever I need to amputate, or blood transfusion, or your husband's about to die because his kidneys are shutting down." My wife signed the papers, immediately went into surgery. I had no clue anything else was going to happen, so I woke up. They kept me in an induced coma for 3 days. So 3 days later, I basically wake up as a bilateral arm amputee. I'll never forget the day I woke up. My mom and my dad came in the room, and I remember Dad sitting there and me being strapped to a bed because it broke my back as well. I was laying flat on this bed, strapped down. Could still feel my hands, but I didn't have them. I didn't know I didn't have them. And I remember asking my dad, how bad was it? And him telling me that I'd lost both my arms. And I think the first thing that literally went through my mind was, I don't know if I'll ever be able to feed myself or dress myself or do much of anything else for myself, but I still got to be a dad. And excuse me, I think that's really what I think that was the very first thing that I had to make up in my mind, that I still needed to be a dad, and regardless of the situation, I needed to move forward. And I've had a positive attitude ever since that day. I remember laying in the hospital room, and my doctor, his name was Jeffrey Guy, Dr. Guy. Dr. Guy walks in my room, he sits down with me, and he told me, he said, I need you to think of something. I need you to think of one goal that you have in your life, and I want to help you reach it. But I need it to be realistic, because sometimes I ask patients this, and they think of something that's just way, you wouldn't be able to reach this goal that they're wanting to come up with. And he said, I need something to be realistic. And he stood up to walk out, and as soon as he got to the door, I told him, I said, "Dr. Guy, I know what I want." He turned around, looked at me, and he said, "How does a 29-year-old kid know what he wants within the first 2 or 3 minutes of me asking him something for one goal to be reached in his life? Like, what is that one most important thing that he wants to be able to do again. And I told him, I said, I want to be able to hold my kids again. That's all I care about. Is that something that will ever happen? And he said, absolutely. I will make sure that you hold your kids again. You know, again, Billy Grace, 21 months old, Campbell, 3 months old, and maybe, excuse me, maybe 2 or 3 days later, my kids came to the hospital for the very first time, and Dr. Guy walked in the room, and here I was hooked up to feeding tubes and catheters and wound vacs and, you know, hoses hanging out of my arms, no hands, strapped to a bed, you know, heart monitors, like you name it, I had it on me. And I remember Dr. Guy walking in and saying, hey, the kids are here to see you. I'm going to bring them into your room. And me looking at him and saying, no, you're not. And he said, what do you mean I'm not? And I said, man, you know, the kids are going to be scared of me. And I don't want to see them. I don't want them to see me the way I look right now. And I said, I want to go to the waiting room. And, you know, he was like, dude, there's no way you'll be able to go to the waiting room. And I said, why not? And he said, you got feeding tubes, you got, you know, all this stuff you're hooked up to, and I can't unhook you from all that stuff. And I said, why not? And he said, because if you don't start eating, you don't start doing this and that, then I'm going to have to put it back in. And it's not very, you know, comfortable putting something like that back in your body. And I remember telling him, I'll take my chances. And I talked him into unhooking my feeding tubes and basically getting me ready to go to the waiting room. And that's where I seen my kids for the very first time, was in a waiting room. And I held my 3-month-old that day. And for whatever reason, I knew that moment that everything's going to work out. I really didn't know how, but I knew that everything would be fine. So
there's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a ton there. I mean, just going through the story, I'm visualizing. I mean, I have 2 small kids, and like, I understand where you were coming from, knowing, like, without really thinking, just knowing, like, as a dad, that's as a man, a married man with a family, I don't care what you do for a living, you hunt, whatever, like, being a dad is number 1.
Yep.
So I visualize you going through that process and wanting that. That
Yep.
strikes home for me.
Yep. Well, then, you know, I was basically told from that moment on that I was going to be in the hospital for several months. And I remember, you know, telling Dr. Guys, like, I'm not going to be here for months. It ain't happening. You know, I'm 2 hours from home, and, you know, it was rough on my kids, have to come up and see me and not really understand what was going on. And then you got, you know, your wife and friends and mom and dad and sister and everybody else sitting in a hospital room all day, every day, or hotel rooms or whatever. And I didn't want that. And I remember telling Dr. Guy that, you know, what do I have to do to get out of this hospital? And, you know, you're going to have to do this and this and this. And, all right, let's do it. And 12 days later after my accident, Dr. Guy walks in the room and basically, you know, man, like, I never imagined I'd be telling you this right now, but I'm going to let you go home. And so, you know, I mean, to lose 2 arms and be in the hospital just 12 days is, I mean, it's pretty crazy, you know. And then I'm heading back to Owensboro, back to my family, back to my house, and not knowing really what life was going to be like. How was you going to make, you know, house payments or raise your kids or, you know, pay for everything, you know. I mean, like, how's all that happen? And again, I know I mentioned a minute ago, I've always gone to church. I've always had faith, and I basically just said, you know, I mean, there's got to be a plan for this, so let's just go with it and figure out what that plan is. And I got home 12 days later, and, you know, I'd say there was a lot of stuff going through my mind as, you know, I love to hunt. Is that ever going to happen again? I love to, you know, do sports with the kids. Is that ever going to happen again? You know, I love to drive. Is that ever going to happen again? Am I ever going to be able to put my clothes on? And actually, I talked to somebody this morning, and I told him, I said, the worst thing about being injured or losing 2 arms is at 29 years old having your wife help you in the bathroom. Like, God dang, man, that's awful. And I said, you know, I got to figure all this out. And Basically, I got home, and 12 days later, I'm sitting in my house, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go out in the garage, and I'm going to try to get in my truck. And I got inside my truck, and I got it started up, and I drove my truck around my grandfather's farm, 12 days after I got home, or 12 days from my accident, the day I got home. And then obviously, things happened from then on. I would come out in my garage and try to build something just to see if I could do it. Try to use wrenches and screwdrivers and hell for no reason, just to do it, just to see what I could do. And,
right.
And then I'll never forget buying a double man ladder stand and bringing it in. My uncle getting it. It's like, man, I'm gonna take you hunting one way or another, and him buying 2 stands and put them in my garage. And that night, I was like, man, I'm going to go build those stands. He was going to help me. But I decided that night I was going to put them together myself. And I think it took me all night, but I built 2 deer stands completely by myself, putting nuts and bolts together, and because I just wanted to do it. And he couldn't believe it. And then end up, going turkey hunting for the very first time. And basically took the 2 screws out of the butt of the shotgun, put a ratchet strap on it, strapped it to my shoulder, had a tripod on the front with a radiator hose clamp and a string from a trigger to my mouth, and was successful. Killed my first deer that year. And then my story could go on for hours and hours of some of the stuff that I've done. And I didn't do it for anybody but myself.
So I didn't want to interrupt you as you were telling a story because it's so captivating. But my question is, when you come into contact with the down power line, it leaves your body through your thumb. Is that the reason they chose to, why did they choose to amputate your arms? And,
Yep.
what happened there?
So when you get electrocuted, like I said, it burns you from the inside out. So basically it burns your muscles, and all that turns into poison and blood and whatever goes through your kidneys. So they have to find the infection that's shutting your kidneys down. So basically the burnt muscles and flesh and whatever that was internal was in my hands. And that's why they had to immediately amputate in order to save my kidneys. Basically, some of my kidneys would straighten up.
Yep.
So basically that's how that happens. My whole right arm was skin graft. It was 3rd-degree burns, so they basically had to take skin off the front side of my legs. So not only was I going through amputations, but, the skin grafts and, the phantom pains and, kidneys, worried about the kidneys. And actually, the doctor said when he cut me open that it ripped the tendons off the tips of my fingers, and they were wadded up at my wrist
Just
anyway.
curled up. And
just like shooting a rubber band, just popped them. There was so much force that, basically my hands would have never worked anyway. So
when they sent you home 12 days later, obviously now you have bionic hands.
not yet.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, now you.
Oh,
do.
yeah, now,
But,
yeah.
When they sent you home, what did you have?
Nothing.
Just nubs.
Yep, just nubs.
So, when you're holding that shotgun to kill that turkey, you don't have anything to stabilize it. Just
Nope.
That's incredible.
I'm thinking about the
turning
dexterity to turning
nuts and bolts.
Yep.
How did you do that?
Yep. I'd
Sure
stick it through
willpower.
with a nub and just turn it. And I mean, everything I did was with my residual limbs. And I told somebody today there was a lot of failure. I think failure is one of the best things that you could actually go through if you have the determination to continue on with it. I mean, some people, they fail at something and life's over. But if you know how to take it, failure is probably one of the best things you probably go through.
Yeah, I mean, that's like take deer hunting for something. You learn the most out in the woods when you fail.
Yep.
Like every lesson I've ever learned from every sport, it's always the failure is what'll teach you the most. And I just can't imagine what kind of mental strength it would take to be to not have hands anymore, and your life could completely change, and you just let it you're it's no different. Even from the time that you were in the ambulance, you're like, I'm just gonna lose a thumb.
Yep.
It could be worse.
Yep.
And then I don't know. To me, I'm thinking how much worse could it get?
Takes a lot of faith.
Yeah, just faith, mental strength, and willpower, and obviously a great support system with your wife, and it's just
and who knows what the way I would have thought if I didn't have kids or if I wasn't married. I mean, who knows? I mean, obviously I can't answer those questions, but maybe it was that knowing that my kids still needed their dad. Maybe that's what it was. I mean, again, I've always had faith, so maybe it was knowing that one way or another that there was a reason for all this. And obviously, I mean, I feel like if people has ever followed my story, they've probably seen a lot of, I don't know, maybe they've seen a lot of why it did happen. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe I was put in this situation because, he knew I was strong enough to do all this. I don't know. I mean, man, more doors has opened up for me in the last, since 2008 than I could ever imagine. Some of the things that happened, people look at me and like, there's no way that has happened. And I don't know any other way to explain it except for him having, and talking about God, God having a plan. And that's the way I've always been, is kind of let it happen. I mean, if it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yep. That's pretty incredible. So how long after the accident did you receive the bionic hands, or know that that was something that was going to be a possibility?
As soon as I got home, I started working with a prosthetist and trying to figure out what my possibilities would be. And I immediately found out about Touch Bionic Hands, which is now owned by Oser, is what it's called now. But at the time, it's called Touch Bionics. I found out, did some research on it, and I knew that's what I wanted to have. And we started working with insurance and trying to get it. And I got denied multiple times. And I kept on fighting it. And I remember writing a letter. A lot of people wrote letters. But I remember writing a letter to whoever's in charge, insurance or whatever, and telling them that I wanted these bionic hands. The reason they said no was because the bionic hands are so expensive. But I remember telling them, I got a 3-month-old and a 21-month-old little girl at home. Like, I can't even hold their hands across the street. And y'all don't want to give me what I feel like I need to be a good dad. Like, I don't understand. I don't care. I don't care if that hand has no other purpose except for holding a hand with your kids. I mean, just say you can't even feed yourself with it, which you can. But point being, if that's what I want out of life, and I still want to be a dad, and that hand is what's going to make me be that person, why can't I have it? And I remember writing that letter, and whether that pulled some heartstrings or whatever it did, that was the turning point of them saying yes. And that's why I became the first person in the world with 2 bionic hands, was because my insurance said yes. And then every day since then, and I got these hands, I wanted to be the best prosthetic user in the world. I mean, that was always my goal. I remember telling people from the very beginning, I'm going to be the best. I want people to know that these prosthetics is, it's funny because some people think it's a luxury. Like, what's a luxury of losing your hands and not having any? I mean, that's not a luxury.
Yeah.
It's a necessity. And now I'm a big pusher on prosthetics and telling insurance companies that these people's got to have what they want to have to get back to their life. And I remember telling a doctor one time, actually, he was the one that denied me. And I remember telling the insurance people, or whoever I wrote, just tell that one person that said this was going to be a luxury to have his hands to come spend 2 hours with me. And let me tie his hands behind his back for 2 hours and let him tell me that it's a luxury.
Right.
So it was, that's why I became the first.
And how long after the accident was that?
I'd say I probably got my first hands, I don't know, probably months later, because actually my right arm, I was still having surgeries on my right arm in December. So, I mean, I what?
8 months.
8 months, yeah.
Still
Yeah.
having some surgeries, which was more like skin grafts and stuff like that. And just to tell you a little bit, I mean, man, I'm telling you, I got so many stories. This is it would be crazy. That's why I tell you that a 2-hour movie would be a really good deal, because I think of different things. But on December the 5th was my last surgery, and I remember that because December the 6th was going to be my daughter's first birthday. And I remember they were going to do another skin graft. And I remember me telling Dr. Guy that I needed to do the skin graft on, December the 7th, 8th, whenever. And he said, no, we got to do it on the 5th. And me telling him that I'm not staying in the hospital because I'm going to be home for my little girl's first birthday. And I remember going to the hospital on the 5th, having a skin graft, coming out wrapped up, him telling me he was going to let me go home, but that if I started bleeding, I had to call him. And I remember waking up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and waking my wife up and saying, I think I just peed in my pants. She said, what do you mean? I said, I'm wet. And I remember turning the light on, and they took the skin from the top of my legs. And I remember having ace bandages wrapped on me, my underwear, and jogging pants, and I had bled through all that. And I remember, that was on the 6th, early that morning, and I remember calling the hospital, what should I do? And them saying, well, just make sure you stop the blood, and Jenny putting an extra ace bandage on a little tighter to get it to basically stop, and going to my little girl's first birthday, and then going to the hospital after that. I mean, I was that determined to be home.
So I guess you get to that point, you get your first set of bionic hands. It's 8 months after. What was? I mean, there's a ton of stuff that happened inside of those eight months. I mean, as we were talking, eating lunch a little bit ago, like there's ups and downs, and I'm sure there's. You tell this story, and everything is upbeat and positive, and I'm determined because of my family and because of my support system. Like, I'm not gonna let this beat me. I'm the same man. Your faith, but it's not. I mean, we're not. I don't want to say we're paraphrasing it, but we're kind of skimming over it.
Yep.
So I don't want to. Well, lost lights there for a second. Oh. Nah, we'll be okay.
We're having some snow issues.
Just lost power.
Oh, we just lost power.
Okay, so we're coming back to. There's probably a brief cut there or a brief edit. We're recording in Western Kentucky, where they're not used to getting as much snow and ice as what they have right now. There's quite a bit of it on the ground, and for some reason we just lost power, so we're struggling through some technical difficulties, but we're still able to record here, so we're gonna power through this thing. So we get to the point. 8 months have gone by. You get your first. Is it your first prosthetics, or is it your first bionic set of hands?
So I also have body powered stuff, which is like the old Civil War looking, or the hooks with the cables, and so I don't know if I got those first or these first. To be honest with you, I don't remember, but I do have. Well, I got a lot of sets of arms now, but I had 2 body powered, and I also had the 2 myoelectrics, is what you call the sockets, which means it's battery operated, muscle controlled, whatever's on it. I wear an ETD. That's a myoelectric. I got the hand. I got 2 hands. I got 2 ETDs. I got multiple arms, but everything has its own job, and there's certain things that you can do with bionics compared to body powered. There's things that the body powered does better than the myoelectric. So it really takes like a whole toolbox. I tell people it's like building a house. You can't build a house with just a hammer. You got to have more than a hammer.
That's right.
That's how prosthetics really work. Knowing what to wear from day to day is what you do from day to day. And what you were talking about when the power went off was the ups and downs. And it's just like a photo album. You never see anything on social media of somebody down. You only see the positive pictures, smiling, all that kind of stuff. So obviously there was a lot of downtimes, a lot of bad days. I never got depressed in a way that I didn't want to live. I always knew that I wanted to live. I wanted to live for my kids, my family, all that kind of stuff. But I realized early on that when something bad happens, why do you take it out on anybody else? So those days that I got upset, those days I was mad, those days I was frustrated, I literally didn't take it out on my family. I literally walked outside, and one guy told me one time that if you're ever mad, don't take it out on somebody else, go outside and kick rocks. And I remember walking up and down this lane many times on my own, doing whatever, whether I was kicking rocks, cussing, fussing, whatever it was. Like I was getting it off my chest, you know what I mean? But I was trying to do it on my own. I didn't want to do it to anybody else. It was nobody else's fault, it was nobody's fault anyway. It was a complete accident from what happened. So I did have those bad days. I had those days where I remember putting a nut and a screw together or a nut and a bolt together with real hands. I know what that feels like, and now you can't do it. It's very frustrating. There's a lot of stuff that's frustrating, but you just still gotta have that faith and keep on rolling on. Though you can't look backwards.
That's right.
I think one of the coolest parts to me about your entire story, and I don't mean to skip ahead too far, but the doors that it's opened for you and what you have done with that. Because you were telling us the story of the Hawaii 5-0 and being on with RoboCop, and then bringing him back to your home and giving other people the opportunity to meet him, and then the money that you were able to bring in from that, you were donating to other people in need, which, like, everything that you've had go on in your life, you could have the attitude of, like, this happened to me, it didn't happen to anyone else, like, I'm going to benefit from it. And your attitude to help others and inspire others and tell the story to other people and want to get it out, not for your benefit, but to hopefully inspire someone else or teach someone else that, like you said on the Whitetail Cribs episode, your message is to, like, never give up and anything's possible. You can accomplish anything you want to. To me, that's the best part of the entire story, is the way that you've handled it and how you're using it to help other people.
Yep.
I'm sure, maybe it was, but was that as soon as that opportunity arose, it was like that. Was that the first thought that you were like, how can I use this to help others?
Well, living in Owensboro, Kentucky, like, this is one of the best places I think you can live at in the whole country, because everybody, when something happens to somebody, everybody pitches in and helps. I remember whenever I came home, we were on a meal train for months and months. My wife didn't have to worry about cooking. I had complete strangers that came by to feed us. I had a lady that called Jenny and said, hey, we want to clean your house for you every week. She didn't have to clean the house every week for free, Like, I had a lot of people do a lot of stuff. I had fundraisers done for me to make sure that we had a roof over our house. And, I had a lot of people that was behind me on my corner, that pushed me. And then when I started getting the opportunity to do the same, of course I wanted to do the same for my community. And I've done that my whole life anyway. I've always done Christmas Wish and stuff like that. I've always wanted to give back. If I'm blessed with something, I want to be able to bless others. So when and being in a little small town, I was in a newspaper, seemed like every week, or I was on the local news every night. And then it just started kind of escalating into more and more. And I'll never forget being on a local news, and an hour after it went off air, I got a call from CNN, and they wanted to run my story on CNN. So my story ran all day long on CNN. And then doors started opening, people started contacting me, other amputees, prosthetists, OTs, doctors. You name it, people was calling me, and I was talking to them like, I am very easy to talk to. I'm very easy to get to know. I'm not better than anybody. I'm not Superman. I think sometimes people look at my story and they feel like I'm Superman or I'm better or whatever, and I'm not. So here my story was kind of nationally known, I guess, a little bit, and then I finally I got a call to do Hawaii 5-0, and I did an episode on Hawaii 5-0 called a Hookman episode, which was basically I said this in the cribs, but basically I was a bad guy. I was hired. They could not find fingerprints on the bionic hand, so I was killing a bunch of people and they couldn't find out who it was. And but the cool thing was they actually hired Peter Weller, which was RoboCop in the 80s, to be the bilateral arm amputee. And they started filming the episode, and they could not make Peter Weller look like he had fake hands. That's when they Googled, found me through the CNN, hired me. I went to Hawaii, and I started filming this episode. And so basically, I was a fill-in or a background. I was just the arms. That's all it was, and it was Peter Weller's face. And I'll never forget the very first day that I was sitting with Peter Weller. He was laying on the ground, and he had this sniper rifle in his arm. And the producer walked up to me and said, "Hey, we need you to lay on top of Peter Weller and put your arm underneath his arm and pull the trigger so we can get your arm and his face in this one scene." And I was like, all right. So I said, "What do you want me to do?" And they said, "Well, just go over and lay on top of him." And I was like, okay. So I go over and I lay on top of Peter Weller. So we're basically spooning, I guess. And I get to laughing. And here you got RoboCop. I've never met an actor before. And you got RoboCop that kind of looks over his shoulder, and he looks up at me, and he goes, "Boy, what are you laughing about?" And I said, "Well, I'm from Kentucky, and, you're the first guy I've ever laid on top of." And I said, "I hadn't even met you yet. I don't even know your name." And from that moment on, he laughed, I laughed, and we became super close. I mean, we talk, I wouldn't say weekly, but sometimes we talk weekly, sometimes monthly, but I know that he's a phone call away. I call his cell phone, he'll call me, and we have a great relationship. And I remember telling my wife one day, I was like, if I could get Peter Weller to come to town, wouldn't that be cool? And I remember Peter Weller calling me sometime before March, and he told me, he said, "Hey, Jason, I want to come in, and I want to meet your community." It was his idea. "I want to meet your community. I've never met anybody as positive and as strong as you, and I want to see why. I want to see where you're from." So he made plans on coming to Owensboro. He flew in, and he came on March 1st, which was the anniversary of my accident. And I couldn't believe it. I thought, man, that's a pretty good coincidence that he's coming in on my anniversary. Well, come to find out, he had my anniversary written down in his phone, and he knew that's why he was coming in. So he came in, and right before he flew into Nashville, I was going to go pick him up. I have a son now that's he's 9 years old now, but he was born after my accident. And I remember climbing up in the attic that day to get out some old toys from when I was a kid, and climbed up there, and there was this big box, and I opened it up, and the very first thing in the top of that box was a poster of RoboCop. And I came down, and I told my wife, I said, for whatever reason in the 80s, I saved that picture, and now this guy's coming to my house.
That's
crazy, And so anyway, I went and picked Peter Weller up. He came to Owensboro, spent the weekend with me, and I had that party. And while I had that party, I decided that I was going to call it Handing Back, and that's what I called it. And that was my first ever Handing Back event. Charged $10 per person to get in. Ended up being $18,000, and I gave $18,000 to 7 different local charities. And then I didn't want to ask him to do it every year because I don't want to bug him to death. And it made me have this vision of why can't I become friends with some of these celebrities, and then these celebrities not really charge me to come visit me, and me put on a party and raise money and give 100% of it away? I'm like I said, I'm easy to talk to, and I feel like if I have that opportunity, I don't care who it is. If I have 10 minutes to sit down with somebody, it can be the biggest celebrity in the world. Give me 10 minutes with them. and we're probably going to be buddies when I leave. You know, I'm going to have his cell phone number. He's going to have mine, and there's no difference between him and me anyway. We put our pants on the same way. But we become friends. So the second time I did my handing back, and I've only done it twice so far, I had a lot more people come in. I had Peter Weller came in. I had a guy named Reggie Shire that was a two-time world motorcycle champ. I had the Hayden boys I told y'all about from here that races. Had some NASCAR guys that's from around here wanting to come in, country music artists from Nashville, and we just had a big old party, you know, and $21,000 that year, and I gave it away to all the elementary schools for Christmas Wish, and just to give back to kids that are less fortunate. And I wish more people did that kind of stuff. Like, how hard is it to meet somebody and have your friend come over? I mean, I don't care if it's RoboCop or not. I mean, he's a friend. And just to have somebody like that come in. I've talked to Alex Olafin, which is McGarrett on Hawaii 5-0, and he's going to come in one of these days. It's just a little harder when you're in Hawaii, but I'll end up having him one day. And who knows who else I ever meet that I'll have that opportunity to do it again. You know, I've done an Apple commercial since then. I've done a movie with Matthew McConaughey, and I did it's called Free State of Jones. I've done a MetLife commercial. The Apple commercial I did was on the Super Bowl. I've done, I don't know, a TV show called about the Unabombers, and I've been on 2 or 3 different hunting shows. And I mean, yeah, it's been cool and a lot of opportunities, and I've met a lot of people, but it goes back to I'm still the same person I was before my accident, and nothing's going to change that.
You said that you've been on some hunting shows, and that's why we're here. We're not here to we didn't know all of this coming here. We didn't come we knew that you lost your hands in an accident. We met you on a bus ride, but what we knew about you is that you were killing a lot of big deer. And that's what Whitetail Cribs is about, coming to people's houses and hearing their deer stories. So not only have you done all these other great accomplishments, but you've been pretty successful with hunting. Let's kind of talk about how that works and how how it's transitioned from how you used to hunt, how you're hunting now, and talk about some of these giant deer you're killing.
Yeah. So, you know, I've always been a big whitetail hunter and turkey hunter. That's the 2 things that I absolutely love. And it, you know, deer hunting is not just during rifle season or a week or 2. I mean, it's year round. You know, it's 365, and I own my own farm in Butler County, and you know, I try to do the food plots and hunting the wind and you know all that stuff. And I've killed some great deer before my accident. Actually, the one right here on the right, you know, I killed it the year before my accident, and I think he scored right at 150. You know, I've killed a couple 150s and mid 140s, and I've always been very interested in killing bigger deer and letting the smaller ones walk. And I've been in touch with you know, like 4S Draw, that, you know, Bruce, he sells a lot of good food plot material that I put out and get more deer coming to my farm. I hunt the wind right. One thing that I had an issue with after my amputation was staying warm with less clothes. Before my accident, you know, you could throw on 4 or 5 layers and bibs and coveralls and blah, blah, blah and have room. But now that I'm an amputee, I have to have as much moving room as I can. So I started doing a lot of research on clothing, and, you know, I was wearing Under Armour underlayer stuff, and it worked because I was less layers, staying warm. And then I got hooked up with Arctic Shield. And I told Arctic Shield one time, I said, man, I need some clothes to keep me warm, but I don't need very thick stuff. So the deer I got behind me, my biggest deer is he scored 187 at 7/8. And if it wasn't for the warm clothes, I'd have never killed that deer because it was cold. It was the very last day of season. It was snow on the ground, wind blowing. I mean, it was cold. You know, before I killed this deer, I mean, you know, about rifle season in November, I'm just about done hunting because I just couldn't handle the cold. being an amputee. So that was a game changer, you know. Scent control was a big deal for me too, because wearing prosthetics, obviously I can't wash my hooks in scent-free stuff. So you know, I was wearing the scent lock type stuff, or the scent control clothing, and I was getting the ozone bags, and scent crusher's been a really, really big deal for me, is using scent crusher bags and trying to put my hooks inside there and letting the ozone take care of it. All that stuff is huge, man. And then I was, doing the food plots, and I ended up working with a company called Casco, and they got a no-till drill behind a four-wheeler, so I plant my own stuff. The machine is really easy, and like I said, it just takes work, takes a lot of time, and running trail cameras and the whole 9 yards, and trying to pattern these deer. And eventually I found a pretty good deer. It's 180. He was a pretty good deer to chase, and I chased him all the way through every day I could hunt, I hunted. And it took all year long to do it, but it finally killed him on the last day. So being persistent is a big key too. And I had a guy that hunted with me, and him not knowing me very well, he didn't know if I could climb up in deer stands. And that's another thing. I love using a climber. Before I got hurt, I can't use a climber anymore, so I got to use ladder stands. And I don't want to use a 10-foot ladder stand. I want to get as high as I can. So, technology in prosthetics and in the hunting industry has gotten big time. And the crossbows, that's what I use now. Crossbow, I'd rather shoot anything with a crossbow now than I would anything else. So all that stuff really helps me be successful.
It's pretty cool.
Not only just chasing whitetails, but you're talking a month after the accident, you kill a turkey with a modified shotgun with a ratchet strap and a string tied around the trigger. Yep. We're sitting in we'll call it your man shop. You got the first amputee in the world to kill a black bear. Probably the biggest whitetail ever killed by a W amputee in the world. Yep. And as we're filming this Whitetail Cribs episode, you're talking about killing elk and mule deer and antelope, like
going to Africa.
Going to Africa. It's just, it's amazing. It's just remarkable.
I just want to show people that you can still do what you love to do, no matter what the circumstances is.
Yeah.
And I love, a lot of people, they take all this hunting too serious, that, you're not a hunter unless you kill a 180-inch deer. And I'll be honest with you, the first deer I killed after my accident was a button buck, and still today that button buck means more than this 180 that I killed. And it's all about who you do it with. It's the memories you make in the field more than what you harvest. And that's the hardest thing for people to get past, is I'm not a very good hunter unless I kill a 180-inch deer. And I don't believe that. I mean, this year I took a lot of kids this year and didn't even really get to hunt, just a couple times by myself. And I mean, I had a picture of on trail cam of a 170, 80-inch deer, and really didn't even hunt him that much this year, So it's all got to be priorities and what's most important in life. And what is most important in life is the memories you make with friends and family.
Yeah, absolutely. So over the last, I don't know, we're going to call it the last 10 years, the last 11 years, you have all these opportunities that have arisen, as you've talked about, the Apple commercials, all the different newspapers. I mean, we look behind us and there's a wall full of newspaper clippings or magazine articles, Associated Press, there's, Bear Hunting Magazine. I mean, just gobs and gobs of newspaper articles and magazine clippings. You're on a Hawaii 5-0. You have all these opportunities that have presented themselves because of what has happened, and how, I don't want to say because of the accident, but I think because of how you've handled it. And you get to a point now where that's cool, but like, it seems like you're not totally, like, you want to do more. You're not totally satisfied. So we were sitting talking at lunch, and you're in the process of writing a book. You've talked about possibly, exploring the option of telling your story through visual as a documentary or a movie. So what is all that, what does all that entail? What does that look like? What is that, where are you at in that process in 2021?
Yep. So I'm real close to getting my book done. It'll be my first book. I've had people since the day I got hurt saying that I need a book. And I got thinking about it, and like why I always want to do everything that I do. I want to do it for a reason. I'm a very humble guy. It's not about fame or fortune for me. Actually, on this book, whenever I get it done, once I get it paid for, I don't know what I'll do with the proceeds off of it, but it'll be something cool, you know. And the thing about it is, the cool thing about it is, I don't have to explain to anybody what I'm going to do with it or brag about what I do with it. I'm just going to do something cool with it. Like I feel like God has this master plan for me to do certain stuff, and I'm just trying to fulfill that. I'm trying to share my story with as many people as I possibly can, to give them hope and to show them that no matter what you go through in life, keep your head up and keep moving forward. I mean, don't give up and, stay focused and stay true and understand that life's not easy. I mean, life actually sucks. You know what I mean? And life's hard, and everybody's going through a hard time. I've got to meet some celebrities that has blown me away with being arrogant, and I don't understand. Every single body that has fame or don't have fame has to start somewhere, and everybody's got to have somebody in their corner to help them out. And I know I talked to you about certain people on trying to get involved or meet this one person that's a big motivational speaker that I feel like I can learn a lot from, and I've reached out to with no comment back. And I'm like, why can't this guy call me back? Why don't he at least call and say, I don't want to talk to you? I call back everybody that has ever called me. I want to talk to you, and I don't care how big or small I am. I will always be true to everybody and remember where I came from. And a lot of these people, they lose that focus. I told somebody one day that if I could do a documentary or if I could do a movie of my story, I wouldn't even care if they used me in the movie or even used my name, but put it based on a true story, because it is, and show people what can happen out there. Like, that is the biggest part of me, is wanting me to show others that you can move on. I think too many people give up way too easy. I think people nowadays, the easiest way to quit something is give up on life. If I gave up on life, nobody would know my story. I'd be sitting in my house not doing anything. And same thing with my wife. I mean, my wife has a story all in its own. I mean, at 29, she was 28 years old. The easiest thing for her to have done is walked out of my life and say, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for this either. But it happened, and you just got to put a smile on your face and keep rolling. You got to stand up tall and keep walking straight, and there's no reason to fall backwards. And I don't know. I just want to be that. I want to be that person that people look up to, and I always want to be there for people and show them again what possibilities are out there whenever you have a determination or a positive outlook on life. None of this stuff would have happened if I wasn't positive. I just hate it when I meet certain celebrities and the way they are portrayed in the public eye is, that's a good old country boy that would be really cool to meet until you meet him, and he ain't got nothing to do with you until he finds out somebody else that is well-known knows you and is friends with you, and then all of a sudden it's almost like they want to be like, and it's happened to me, what can I gain from that guy now that I know he knows so-and-so and so-and-so? What can I gain from him? Where 20 minutes before that, he thought I was some dude just from Owensboro, Kentucky that didn't have any contacts. Well, he didn't have nothing to do with me 20 minutes ago. I just don't understand why people can't all have the same attitude and just be there for one another. And I mean, can you imagine what this world would be like if everybody just got along? I mean, you start talking about it, it's a whole new subject about politics. I mean, You know, it's like Trump and Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless who I voted for, Biden is our president now, and I'm going to support that. You know, did Trump do a great job? Absolutely, he did a great job. But in the end, he lost. And I've always been taught that until you're proven guilty, you're innocent until you're proven guilty.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless if people think that Trump was taken by this presidency or not, Biden has not been proven guilty. He's innocent right now. If he's ever proven guilty, hey, that's fine too. But right now it seems like our country is so divided because people are all about Trump or one person or one party, and we all need to be together because everybody else in this country is laughing at the United States right now because we're not together. And when we are together, we're pretty dang strong.
That's right.
Undefeatable.
That's right. So, you know, the message that I get from this is your story is inspirational. And again, that we bumped into you a couple years ago, not knowing, like a lot of this stuff we have just learned this morning. I mean, spending 3 hours with you. Yes, we knew about the accident, like Cameron said. We knew about the bionic hands, which we thought was like the coolest thing ever. You're sitting we bump into you on a bus, and you're sitting there drinking a Coke or a Pepsi, and it's like, how in the heck's he doing that? You know, we start BSing a little bit, and you know somebody that we know. And then one thing leads to another, and then we get here, and we're filming this Cribs episode, and you're talking about all this stuff. Just, I don't know. I'm not sure. You know, I don't want to say like I'm into motivational speaking or like self-help stuff, but I think, you know, leadership's really important, and running a business and owning a business. And I've always been in like leadership type positions, whether it's, you know, like captain on a football team or, you know, you have people you've taken under your guidance underneath your wing. And I find myself reading all the books from like John Maxwell and Jocko Willink and all this stuff from, you know, whether it's an autobiography of successful people who've overcome hardship, difficulties. And sitting here in the last 3 hours, I don't know that I've ever been more inspired by maybe that's because we're face to face and we're talking, and I could see the expressions in your face and hear the conviction in your voice. Maybe that's part of it, but you know, being here, I don't think I've ever been more inspired by somebody's story than right here this morning. Not just you know, I think it's part of it's the hunting thing, part of it's you know, the father thing. You have kids, I have kids, but yeah, I'm not sure. I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but I can feel that right now. Just even going back through listening to the story for the second time, it's incredible.
Yeah, I'm not always left speechless or feel like I'm speechless, but like sitting there listening to the first part of the story, I didn't know what to say.
Yeah,
like, I've never been through anything like that.
Mm-mm.
And there's been times where I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm like, what did I ever have to worry about before? Here's a guy talking to us that doesn't have any hands, and he's just like the most positive, inspirational person, that I've ever come in contact with. So I appreciate the conversation and the time and letting us come look at your deer and talk to you about everything else that's going on and sharing it with all of our viewers and listeners. And I hope someone can pick up some inspiration from this, whether you're feeling down, like especially right now, everyone's dealing with COVID, and there's a lot of negativity, and if someone can pick up some positive attitudes from this and do something for someone else, then it's all worth it in our eyes.
Absolutely. And I would love for anybody listening to this that have questions, or maybe you're an amputee, or maybe you're going through a divorce, or maybe you're going through financials, or whatever it is that reach out to me. I love talking to people. I love meeting people, and I got the whole social media platform, and Instagram and the Facebook, and whatever it is. Actually, my kids has got me wanting to do TikTok. I don't know about TikTok yet, but I do have a TikTok. But I'm not a dancer. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But when people reach out to me, if it gets to me, man, I always write back. I want to be there for as many people as I can, and I don't care if this is the biggest celebrity in the world sitting there. I'm gonna tell you one more quick story. Alex Olafin McGarrett on Hawaii 5-0, he called me one day, and long short, I don't know exactly how it come up, but I heard sirens and stuff in the background, and he's been in movies with Beyonce and whoever else. And I'd asked him, I said, "Are you on set?" And he said, "No, man, I'm at my house." And I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "I just want you to know that after meeting you, I know everything's going to be okay." I said, "All right, what's going on?" And he said, "Man, my house is on fire, and I'm losing everything I got." So you got this guy in Hawaii that could probably call Brad Pitt, Beyonce, you name them. He could probably have their cell phone number and call them. And instead, he calls a guy from Owensboro, Kentucky that lost 2 arms. And I knew right then that if I can inspire somebody that's so big, Peter Weller, same way, if I can inspire people like that, I mean, I can inspire anybody in the country. We all need each other. So I don't care how big, how small you are. I'd always be here for you.
So if somebody wants to get in touch, social, website, whatever, give yourself some plugs. Where can folks find you?
So on Instagram, jkoger84. Twitter is Koger84. On Facebook, I got a fan page. It's just Jason Koger Official. I'm on www.jasonkoger.com. If you Google it, you'll probably find something. I was just going to
say. What's the name of the book going to be?
I don't know yet. We actually had something that we were going to come out with, and my wife just told me the other day she didn't think it sounded good, and I told y'all that I got a guy with Dave Ramsey reading my book, and he actually called me as well and was like, "Man, this title of this book, it's kind of cliche." So I'm trying to come up with something different, but so I don't know yet. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know, but it was going to be Why Survive When You Can Thrive, but that's the one that everybody thinks I need to kind of. But so I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
Well, I'm excited for that to see light. It'll be definitely. I read a lot of books, so it's definitely going to be on my list, and we'll be excited to share that information for folks. So, anyone listening right now, if you have interest in Jason's story, you want to learn more, you want to watch the Whitetail Cribs, that stuff will be out shortly. I imagine this episode is going to go live here pretty quick. We're recording this on the 18th, February 18th? 19th. So we're recording this on the 19th. It may go live next Tuesday.
March 1st.
It may be March 1st. Okay. Cameron's saying March 1st. So
that'll be the anniversary.
Yeah, there you go. Is that really Tuesday?
I don't know if it's a Tuesday or not, but that's the timing that I thought that would make the most sense. It's a Monday.
Yeah, March 1st.
It's a Monday.
So it'll be March 1st when you're hearing this. And again, if you want to learn more, I don't know how you would want anything more, but if you want to hear more of his hunting stories and see some of the deer, watch the Whitetail Crib stuff. But the story is really impactful. And
or if you want to take me hunting.
Yeah, there you
just
go.
Come.
Never said no to that. But we appreciate
still got elk and mule deer and
you got elk, mule deer, antelope. What else was on the list?
Whatever you got.
Africa
moose. That's good stuff. But we appreciate everyone tuning in. If you haven't already, listen to this podcast, this episode, and even if you don't get in touch with Jason and you for whatever reason, I'm interested to hear what everyone thinks of this episode because it's a little bit different than a lot of the stuff that we talk about. A lot of it's hunting tactics, strategies, some educational stuff about trail cameras. We've never really gone into this kind of space before, but I felt like the opportunity was there, and like we had to. I would going down the road. I think Cameron and I both would have regretted not sitting down and recording with you. So, if you got anything out of this episode, leave it on iTunes. Leave it in the review section, and that's something we're gonna be watching to see if it makes a difference for anybody. So, we appreciate the time, appreciate the stories, the inspiration, all of it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
That's it.
Yeah.